This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from the entire SJM universe with discussions surrounding trauma, grief, and death of a parent.
Everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are revisiting, rediscussing, talking about again, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas.
And if you've been following the podcast for a while, welcome back. We're so excited about discussing Silver Flames again and probably going to go more into some details now that we have more connections, especially with Hosab being out and then Flame and Shadow coming out in a couple weeks. So we wanted to start off with that. If you're new, welcome. And because we have a new segment on our podcast that Laura has helped introduce to us, we have something called The Pattern. And it's to see if every episode, whether a book or a movie that we're watching, if something's reflected in the beginning, kind of gives away or kind of gives us some insight about the plot of the book. And if it wraps up in the end that way. So Laura, does Silver Flames follow the pattern?
Silver Flames follows the pattern perfectly. It's like chef's kiss perfect. Oh my goodness. It's really something. It's really something. The prologue gives us the pattern. The prologue starts off with Nesta being in like the memory of the cauldron, right? And like hell is cold, the space between stars, darkness, the beginning and the end. Immortality is fire and steel. Nesta takes and takes and takes and takes and takes power from the cauldron. At the end of the book, spoiler, at the end of the book, she says, take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. I will let you have it all back if you show me how to save my family. So yes, this follows the pattern. It follows it perfectly. I love when it's in the prologue.
But see, it's like you think it's gonna this is a reread for both of us. Is this your second read? How many times have you read this now?
2.5. The initial time when this first came out a couple of years ago, and then this time and like a half time more.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is only the second time I've read it. I've read it in excerpts, but it's only like the fluffy Cassian scenes kind of thing. So I've never actually fully reread it. But knowing what we know, was it easy to go into the prologue and be like, oh, it's all right here the second time around?
Knowing what we know. Oh my gosh. It's such a good way to put that, Jess. Of course, you're so good with this. Knowing what we know, everything about this book was easier. Absolutely everything. Because the connections were there. I was reading with a purpose. I was like really looking for things. I was reading with Crescent City, like Hosab in my head. So I was like, oh, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's that. And also through this reread, of course, we always say like reread everything. But through this reread, I was really able to pinpoint why I am frustrated and continue to be frustrated with this book, and why I also understand why so many people love this book and love Nesta. And I understand very much so why I'm not going to say don't, because I respect Nesta, but I don't love her. And I think that's fair to say.
I think that's fair to say. I think that's also really respectful compared to like other conversations that are out there, because you don't have to absolutely love and be like, Nesta's my character. If she's not, then like, you don't understand grieving. You don't understand trauma. You don't like, that's not the conversation to be having.
No, that's not the conversation to be having, but let's have that conversation. Just very briefly, the reason why I am frustrated with this book and the reason why I'm frustrated with Nesta is because a lot of her trauma has to deal with death of a parent. And death of a parent is something that a lot of people experience, and a lot of people, and I'm including myself in this, do not get an ounce of the grace that Nesta was given to deal with her trauma. For example, I had less than 2 weeks and I had to go back to work. Nobody gave a shit, like outside of like you, obviously, and like a couple of my friends, but like nobody gave a shit. Nobody at work gave a shit. Like you have to go. Like it is just life. Like life continues. It is what it is. The fact that Nesta was given over a year to like work through whatever she was going with on her own with like full support, completely bankrolled, rubs me the wrong way because one, I'm jealous. Like I wasn't given any of that. Like I'm very jealous that she was given that, but also too, like it speaks to her privilege. Also the fact that she's like slightly aware of it, but like doesn't care and is just kind of like going through, and just kind of like bouncing through life without any sort of responsibilities or financial worries. I know this is a fantasy. I understand that. My frustration is that I am reading a fantasy book to not deal with this shit. Do you know what I mean? Like having to deal with this in real life and witnessing a character also deal with it and watching her just like steamroll every single opportunity given her way for help is frustrating, especially when you in real life were not given those same opportunities. It's just like, you know what? I don't care. And that is my frustration with this book. It continues to be, and I recognize that is my own shit. Like, I understand that, which is, again, circling back to why I understand why people love Nesta, why I respect Nesta, but I don't love her. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely makes sense. And I think there's that respect factor, too, because I think, I don't even want to say you can argue. We understand that everybody handles trauma differently and everybody copes differently. And I feel like this episode is going to be interesting because I'm not going to say it's going to do a 180. The frustrations are still going to be the frustrations that we had in our initial episode. But I think it goes back to understanding where people are coming from and can understand, like, when people are like, you know what, Nesta is me, I am Nesta. That's great because it's so important when you can find something that you can relate to and it feels like, oh my gosh, I feel seen. But I agree with you with the grieving process. I mean, I had different frustrations in regards to how she handled her grief. But again, that's all valid too. Because like me, if that was my dad, I'd be like, bye. Wouldn't have any, like, I have no contact with my biological father. I would be relieved. I know that for a fact. So, but that's why I would be like, Nesta, he didn't take care of you. And now because he came through the last second, thanks for the help for saving my family that have been here for me. Deuces.
Yeah.
Great.
Bye.
We needed the legions. That was great. Bye. Like, but that's me. And again, like to what you said, you're like, we're handling it differently and coming from our own shit. That being said, I know I'm on record, like for the last, 3+ years saying Nesta gives me a lot of frustrations, but there's a lot of frustrations that are things that I'm frustrated with myself about.
Yeah. And that, again, totally valid. I say the opposite. Like every time Nesta's like, I don't deserve this. Like I'm worthless. I'm not worth any of this. I just wanted to shake her and be like, look around you. Like please appreciate what you have, where you are, what you're doing. You know, and I understand, like, that's part of the depression, that, like, that's part you can't see, like, outside. Like, I understand all of that. But, like, as a reader trying to enjoy the story, right, you're just like, come on, let's go. Do the lunges, Nesta. Like, come on. It's just like one of those things. But again, it's the frustrations. Nesta is, I think, objectively a really fantastic literary character. And she goes through just so much in this book. And like Cassian as well. But this is very much Nesta's book. Yeah, I think we can go through it because obviously we have our initial reactions on this book. We can go through it and touch on like some broad points here. I do want to say Editor Sam has asked us to like chill a little bit on our episode length.
So now we're going to be like, here's 30 minutes of us just bullshitting.
So you know, we'll
if you want long episodes, please reach out to us so we can show Sam, our editor, that that's what y'all want. So
with that in mind, I think we can kind of like, you know, go through the broad plot points here. Jess, there's nothing wrong with a good old fashioned intervention.
No, I am still confused as to people who don't understand that concept of rehab and interventions. I really am. I'm at a loss of words, especially when there is a moment on paper, on Word, that Nesta recognizes that this is what she needed. And even when she was like down in downtown Valaris or something, she says, you know, I'm actually kind of nervous to be here because I've actually been doing really well in the House of Wind rehab. And I am scared of like what happens outside of this controlled environment. And that's very, very like reflective of how life is when you're leaving rehab, of like, yeah, everything's good. I don't have these outside things going on. I mean, she's learned how to meditate. She's learned how to mind still in her controlled environment. Take her out of that. It's very scary. And she recognizes it on paper. This was the best thing for her. And she needed it to, it's one of those things you have to wait till it gets bad before you kind of recognize it in yourself. So I just don't understand why. I really don't understand why people are so upset with like the inner circle. There's comments of saying like, oh, you know, her choice was taken away. That's what like court mandated rehab is.
And it's also, again, this going back to, I completely understand Feyre's points here. Feyre, and because Nesta's like, oh, am I embarrassing you? And Feyre was like, yeah, Actually, you are, because you're a member of the court and your actions reflect on us and we are the leaders of the freaking country. So like, you can't just do this. And if you are, and I also like, it's like, and if you are, be discreet about it.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing? Like, come on. And it's also like, you know, Nesta's signing these bills with a flourish to the account. She knows what she's doing. It's also like, it's a dare. Like, all right, how far can I go before like shit hits the fan? So it's also like, what were you doing, Nesta? Like, you had to know that this was going to end somehow.
She wanted everything both ways at this point. She wanted the freedom. She didn't want anybody to be on top of her about how she was handling her grief and her trauma and everything in between, her depression. But she also didn't want anybody to question her about it. And she didn't want to be held accountable. But she knew, like you said, she's like, ooh, they're calling me. They definitely got that bill. I did kind of go like, there is a self-awareness there.
There is self-awareness. This is where we get Feyre's tears dripped into her scrambled eggs. You know, the classic line. I just, this whole rehab fight. you know, I like that Feyre is like, you know what? Some of this is my responsibility. I let this go on too long. I should have stopped this. Like, you know, I thought maybe you would try, and you haven't. You don't have a life. You're spending all of our money. You're embarrassing us. Like, these are your options.
And she doesn't like, and then she gets upset. They're like, you don't have to do these things that we're asking you to do, but this is your other choice. And everyone's like, well, that's not a great choice. And Nesta says, that's not a great choice. No, it's not, but it is a choice.
Yeah, it is a choice. And Nesta can choose to go back to like a bad choice is still a choice. She can make the best of it. But, you know, she goes up to the House of Wind as you would with, you know, Cassian right there. My gosh. But I like that Feyre lays down the law here. I know everyone's like, oh, so out of character. I don't think so. Feyre's like, no, you are cut off. BT dubs, I'm condemning that building. It's going to get rebuilt and it's going to be put to a good purpose. You're not just going to like live in a slum anymore. Like, if you're not going to help you, I am going to help you, and I will do it if you are kicking and screaming the whole way. And that is something that I have done and would do again, and is in character for me.
I just go back to being on record. Nothing is out of character. I don't understand why people are saying it is. I mean, people will be like, oh, well, we saw it through like Feyre's like rose-colored glasses. He was still this person.
Yeah.
We just saw like the cuddly sides of him too, but this has never deterred any of the court.
No, not at all. And Nesta's like, you know, Feyre, I'll never speak to you again. And Feyre's like, fine, like, whatever, just go and get better. Like, we'll deal with this like later. It's if you haven't seen John Mulaney's like new special that came out in 2023, he talks about his intervention that was like he had to deal with all of his friends, and while hilarious, also very sad. And it's very like similar to this. Like, come on, didn't we all grow up watching Intervention?
Tom Felton's autobiography talks about his intervention too.
Yeah,
and like even there are people that are no longer in his life, but he goes, the people who were in that room at that time for him, he goes, he's still like he is who he is today because of the people in that room for him.
Yeah, it's just so important. So I do think maybe there's like a generational or like an age gap when it comes to interventions, with people being like, oh my God, like, no, this is so bad. But other also people like who grew up watching the show being like,
And maybe, you know what, and maybe that speaks to somebody else's privilege too, that they haven't had to encounter any of this or any of these conversations.
Ooh, that's a really good point. Now, Jess, let's talk about the model in Rhys's study. I know we talked about it in our initial Silver Flames episode. I clocked that, but let's talk about it now.
Yeah, you're on record. You're like, why isn't anybody talking about this? And then in our HostSab initial reactions episode, you were like, the worlds. But yes, chapter 3. It's a world, like a multi-dimensional globe is kind of how, with other planets and stars kind of surrounding it. It is in the center of his study. It's a massive working model of their world, the stars and the planets around it, and other fancy things that need to be that had to have been explained. Rhys had built the model himself centuries ago. It could not only track the sun, but also tell time, and somehow allowed Rhys to ponder the existence of life beyond their world and other things.
There you go. Sitting there.
Which we know that the Autumn King in Crescent City has this as well. So yep. Rhys has been on it for centuries about like, what is the meaning of life? But you know who else is too? Meryl.
Yep. She is on it. She is on it. So like the really like major plot points here, I really don't like. Cass and Moore talk about, like, Velahan won't sign the treaty, and, like, the queens are stirring,
We
right?
still don't know anything about Velahan, so we're probably not, either we're not going to find out about it until CC3, or we're going to find out about it in ACOTAR 6. Everything is just like an in limbo game until we have CC3.
Yeah. Nesta kind of just talks about her mom and how her, like, mommy issues aren't as bad as her daddy issues, but they're still pretty bad. About how mom, like, made her into a wolf, and how everyone really hates her mom. And I know there's a lot of theories about, like, her mom was, like, Fae, or her mom was, like, this or that or whatever. I'm not going to speculate on that. I just kind of want to see if that ends up being anything. It might not.
Whatever she is, she was a bitch. She's a narcissistic parent. And, like, Nesta got the brunt of it as being the oldest daughter.
Yep. So, you know, I kind of want to just see how that plays out. Nesta won't practice. This is the thing that kind of bugs me. Cassian, it would not take Cassian that long to figure out what's going on. He would hear her the, like, second time. I won't trade, like, the way that she says it in that, like, godforsaken village or whatever.
That's what he says. He's like, I'm an idiot. I'm a freaking idiot.
He's
of
not,
course.
Though. Here's the thing. He's not, though. He's not an idiot. He is so deeply in tune to Nesta that he would have picked up on that way before that. That's my little point. You want to talk about someone being out of character?
I love Cassian. I really love Cassian. He does. I guess you're right. Because, like, he was always, I mean, I guess, I don't even know if it's part of the mating bond. He was just always protective of her because obviously the mating bond didn't snap into place yet. But he was the first to always go for her. Like, y'all, give her a second. Why are you jumping down her throat? Like, what did Elaine do? Like, why are you, or even when Rhys was like, be nice to Gwen, Cass was like, fuck you. Like, you don't know who she is. And why are you antagonizing the situation?
Yeah. Speaking of, they go to Windhaven. Devlin says, are you bleeding? You contaminate those weapons. Are you on your cycle? We got to bury them.
I love that she just does not give a shit about the Illyrians. She's like, they're like, what is she doing here? She's like, I'm a witch. Like, she's just always there to ruffle their feathers because she knows it bothers them. I love it.
It is very funny. I'm wondering if her calling herself a witch over and over and over again is going to have any payoff with Bryce and Crescent City, because there's witches over there and there aren't really, like, witches. You know, it's like a whole thing. We can speculate forever, and we will.
Well, and we will. Well, you want to talk about speculating? How many times is she referred to as queen in every single different capacity over and over and over again in this book?
Yeah, she's got the crown on during the dancing. Like, it's a whole thing. So that should pay off at some point. You know, we'll see. Here in this book on paper, though, essentially plot. Eris has soldiers that are missing, and they kind of want to figure out what's going on. So Cassian tries to play courtier and goes to Lucian, Vassa, and Jurian to kind of figure out and confirm some information. And that's when Eris is there. And Eris is like, I want to be a spy for you. I want in. Let's be allies more so than what we really are. And Cassian's like, okay. But let's talk about Kostje. This is where kind of I have a funny feeling. Because as soon as we start talking about Kostje and the Trove and Nesta's power, then we start talking about Crescent City. So then you have to read everything through a lens of how is this going to affect Crescent City? And I guess my point is I really can't wait until we don't have to do that, until it's all out there and we can just read and make the connections and not have to speculate anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because my mental energy being like, all right, how does Kostje, the bone carver's older brother, what does he have to do with this? Where did he come from? Did he come through one of the rifts? What is this? I just want to know. And to be done with wondering. That's what it is. Cassian is like enlists Eris to, work with them.
Well,
He's
because Cassian's the courtier now.
Yeah,
courtier.
He can be more. So he is going to check out the soldiers, what's going on. Brialyn did it. This whole thing. She's got the crown. Oh, this whole thing with Brialyn. Nesta starts her journey of falling down these goddamn stairs. She falls down these stairs so many times. Now, Jess, you and I were talking earlier. It's not the amount of stairs. It's the spiralness of this.
Yeah, because I feel like we were all dragging her. Everyone's like, 10,000 stairs. She's going down. It's not that hard. You look, 10,000 stairs. And then in the beginning of that chapter, it says that they're a foot. They're not like small stairs. The height of the stairs are a foot. So that's steep for stairs, I think. And then it's the spiralness of it. And yeah, we all know going up the stairs is hard, but going down stairs that are spiraling doesn't, it does a lot. Because Laura, you were saying like, oh, I've done over 10,000 steps today. It's not that hard. And then we were like, but wait, let me present you with the fact that I went to see, a while ago, Harry Styles at Madison Square Garden, and I had like nosebleed sections one night, and I went from the nosebleeds. I was like, I'm going to go down the stairs because that's going to be faster. I got so dizzy. And I remember my first thought was, ooh, Nesta, I get where you're coming from now.
Well, it's really something. So, and I like that, like Sarah has given us like her step number progress, right? It's like 60 and then like 111 and then, she gets you.
And you're doubling it because you're going down and then she's like, I can't do it. There was one point in one of the stairs that she was just like going down where I would have just been like, Cassian, she has just such great stubborn willpower because at one point I probably would have been like, fly down here and get me.
Come get me. Yeah.
I can't do this. Just leave me here till tomorrow otherwise.
Be like, I'm not doing it. Should we mention that Azriel is staying at the House of the Wind? Yeah, Az is staying at the House of the Wind.
Is he the chaperone? He just because I feel like he just lives there because the way they made it sound there, he was just like, yeah, Az went to his room, I'm in mine. He clearly just wants me to know that he's here, but doesn't want to talk. So he like slammed his bedroom door. They're so cute. I love their friendship.
Speaking of friendship, we have Nesta and Emery meeting for the first time. That's nice. That's fun. So let's just talk about it here. My frustration with Nesta's Valkyrie found family still stands. Nesta is on paper saying that she hates it when Feyre calls the inner circle her family. She finds it like an insult, like Feyre had to go find her own family because they were so terrible. And then Nesta turns around and does the same thing. It's like, okay.
And she also said that to, even when she was like, hey, it's a boy. Elaine doesn't know. I wanted you to know. And she's like, oh, so you're keeping track? And Feyre's like, no. And she's like, I'm really excited. I didn't realize I really wanted a boy. And she's like, oh, because having sisters was so awful. And she's like, why are you twisting my words? This isn't what I'm saying. I just wanted to have a moment with my big sister, and you're not letting me have that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nesta does say like later she like hates herself for the way that she's always snappy, but like, oh my goodness. It is a consistent frustration that we have.
I wish Valaris had a therapist because that's a big thing. And then I was like, why don't they have a therapist? But then there's a priestess that counsels, obviously, the other priestesses and like acolytes in the library. So like maybe we can get another one. You have one that obviously has like a specialty in their therapy. And then you have one that just does everything else. I don't know.
Like, it can only help.
It can only help.
It can only help.
Because all the thoughts that everybody's having, you as the reader are just like, it's one giant miscommunication trope of just talk. Because she would be like, oh my God, he doesn't want to talk to me. And he would be like, she doesn't want to talk to me. I can't believe she's acting like this isn't a big deal. It's the biggest deal of my entire life. And I'm like, y'all, talk.
Yeah, like enough. Okay, so if we're talking broad strokes, and I think we're talking broad strokes. Nesta meets Gwyn in the library. This is also when Nesta really starts talking to the house. Of course, we know that Nesta's power has like animated the house. She wanted a friend. She was lonely, so like the house is her friend. This is kind of when the house really starts like kicking in and talking to her. And this is also where Nesta like really falls down the stairs. Okay, like really bad, like really
and
bad.
grips onto the wall.
Yeah, and like digs in with her hands with her power that she just like doesn't want to deal with. This is again like everybody hates you, you know, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. You know, but here is where we're going to talk about Meryl. Because Gwyn and Nesta, you know, they have like a little, you know, they're quickly becoming friends in the library, whatever. But Gwyn's looking for a book and she's like, and Nesta's like, what is this woman actually researching? And Gwyn's like, it's really important. Well, what she was working on was like super important. She was talking about overlapping worlds and how there's like 26 worlds and there's like 11 that are like really here. We can overlap at the same time, but like different times. And like, it's all very, very. And then she's like, but actually, no, she's done with that now. And now she's focusing on Valkyries.
Which is like, it's just dropped there. What's the line? Meryl is brilliant. Horrible, but brilliant. When she came here first, she was obsessed with theories regarding the existence of different realms and different worlds, living on top of each other without knowing whether there is merely one existence, our existence, or if it might be possible for worlds to overlap, occupying the same space, but separate by time, which, I mean, this is a full spoiler episode. We already know that it's confirmed in HOSAB. We already know it's confirmed in CC3 at this point. We know it's confirmed in Kingdom of Ash. Like, we know this. So to see this part, and then like, if you read this in publication order 2020, and this came out in 2021, you would have been like, oh, huh, interesting. Well, we do kind of know this because of Kingdom of Ash, but like, it's so specific. And then to tie that into knowing that Rhys has the model. And then I don't know, this just goes back to when we talk about the importance of rereading things. It makes for like, you start plugging in, you're like, oh, this is so fun because you can go into it with a different lens also.
How about how they just drop it here though? It's like, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we're never going to talk about it again. On to the Valkyries. It's just like, okay, all right, excellent. We're just going to research Valkyries from now on. Never talk about this again. Excellent. All right. So again, I just have like a little frustration about crossovers versus Easter eggs, I think is where my frustration is. And I'm not quite sure how to articulate it yet. I'm working on that argument.
Well, this is our Easter egg for it might coming up in the future.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Where are we? Cassian is itchy. You know, there.
I didn't even realize we were going to touch on like spring court stuff. Honestly, I was like, oh, Tamlin, you're there.
Yeah, you're there. You're there.
Oh, but this is around, that was like we were talking about chapter 13. Chapter 15 is where the line, I can feel something like a cat, small and clever and curious, that Gwen and Nesta discuss in the library. Which yes. I feel like it's not confirmed, but I feel like we as a fandom have confirmed that the cat's Adis.
Which is interesting. Okay, so like right? if the cat is, because it could be two things. It could be the heart of the house, which lives down there,
which is also confirmed,
protecting in its own way the priestesses, you know, as they go about their way, because the darkness that follows them doesn't follow everybody, just certain people, right? Because Gwyn doesn't see it. So it could be the house, you know, expressing itself, you know, in it the only way that it could, or it could be Adis. It could be Adis. We don't know. And I want to.
Yeah, I feel like we obviously we don't know. It's not confirmed, but we all have it in our head that it is for some reason.
Yeah, and Nesta says, like, you know, Nesta's down there, you know, the darkness, the cauldron, she calls it the chasm, you know, so like, hello. It's just too obvious to like call it the chasm. They talk about it a lot in Crescent City, and then to call the presence of a cat. We know that this is crossover material. This isn't lazy writing. So this is where we really kind of have to start pulling threads. This is also, we have prison talk. You know, we have the Lanthus. Cassian starts talking to Nesta when they're training about, like, you know, his birth mother, all of this stuff, his own trauma. And then he talks about,
you want to know how Lanthus. I got these scars?
Yeah, essentially. And then he tells us about Lanthus and like all of this prison lore that they drop is going to be important. It's not there for no reason.
It's not there for no reason. And this is also because we're in this training montage, like leading up into this, you know, they've made their bargain bond already. You know, their bargain tattoos are 8-point stars. And like all of that is obviously getting connected to the prison and the 8-point stars. And this used to be, you know, Rhys has talked about a court in the past, a lost court, which obviously we know is the Dusk Court. It's all the little things that, like you said, it's like, it's not lazy writing. It's all connectivity, but it's just dumping information for us to know to start piecemealing things together.
Yeah. So what do we have? We have Lanthus, you know, he's made of wind and rain and mist.
And at this point, we also don't think that he can be killed. He can only be contained, is what they say.
Yes. You know, Cassian contained him by trapping him in a mirror. All of this to build up that he is like immortal, unkillable, like very scary. So that later, spoiler, when Nesta straight murders him, it just like underlines and emphasizes how powerful all of this like situation is. Very, very good.
I know we're going to get to it at the end, but it's like, we know how powerful she is. We know she's Lady Death. We know all the things. And then when Cassian is like, do you know how powerful you could have been? Do you know all you could have ruled? And the whole taking away her powers, like, I know we're going to get into in the end, but it's still just as frustrating the second time around because you're reading it like, maybe I missed something. Maybe like, and I didn't. It happened the way it happened. She did it for what she did it for, but it didn't. I'm just very frustrated that she had to lose her powers.
As you should be. We don't need to talk about the smut. I don't need to relive Cassian and Nesta's breeding kink. It's all over everything. It's running down everything.
He's painting her. He wants it everywhere on her.
Again, referring to our Silver Flames episode, everything is sticky in that house. It's all sticky. So the book is about a book. I think that's all we have to say about
that. You know, that's the best way to summarize some of these conversations. What's the book about? A book.
Book's about
maybe Harry Styles read ACOSF when he was doing that promo for his movie. When he was like, the best thing about the movie is it feels like a movie.
Feels like a movie.
He definitely took a page out of Nesta's book.
Nesta, just, you know, we get all of these like information during all of these training montages. Nesta gets a little bit of lore about the blood rite and you know, the mountain and Prythian and all of this stuff. And it's dropped here early on and then it's dropped again, like repeatedly, so that when they finally are kidnapped and are in the blood rite, you're like, oh, well.
Oh, this makes sense. This is what we're doing. They would take the hardest track to Ramiel. I also like when they come back and they keep doing the Valkyrie training. Azriel's like, here, oh, that's what y'all did? Let's tell everybody what you did wrong. And I was like, I totally get that. I would reevaluate everything I did wrong and not that I survived.
Yeah, for real. Let's briefly touch on the fight that Nesta has with Elaine. She's like, I was there for you when you were comatose, Elaine. Why aren't you there for me? Like, it's not all about you, Nesta. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Get over it. And, like, I like that Elaine is finally like, you know what? Like,
It's, well, what's one of the things? Oh, look at you, Elaine. It started to become interesting.
Interesting. It's fun. It's fun. It's after this fight that Cassian is like, what the hell? That Nesta gets like 1,000 stairs down, 1,000 stairs back up. This is where they kiss for the first time. And this is where we get quick off the mark. Again, I don't think we have to go into it. It's fine. Az is back. Is there a chaperone? Anything I have to know? This is where we get more information. This is where we get it. We have a report given because there's a meeting at the river house. And this is where it's like information is given. Briellen and Baron are allied, right? She's mad because she wants to get her youth back. She wants power back. She's got to be working with Kosje, and he wants to be free from the lake. And what else we hear? I
feel like this is just like background. It's just like why they're working together, and now how they have to continue to meet with Eris so they can go ahead and we'll find out what Baron wants with Kosje and Briellen, and if he's already promised your armies, what are you going to do to help like offset that to get the information we need?
And it's also like, this is where we get the dread trove information, the mask, the harp, the crown. So the mask can raise the dead. The crown can influence everybody. And the harp, what does the harp do?
I said like time travel / winnow / death, because the 26th string of the harp is time, which also calls to death, or death answers that string. And we know, obviously, with the requests, it has to be specific, because when she plucks the first string, Nesta, when they're in the prison, she's like, get me out of here, I'm locked in. Or like, free us from here. She was not specific with her words. She said us as in her and harp, but she could have been used with us. And obviously that's where Lanthus is released also.
Yeah. Whoops.
Oh, and then we have the fourth one that it's rumored that there's only 3, but there's rumored that it's 4. But we know that the fourth object was like seen in a vision that's kind of blurred out, but gleams of age-worn bone, which we know is the horn from Crescent City.
Yep. And, put them all together. What do we have? Magic. Oh, nobody really knows, right? It's just like magic. And, Kosje just wants to like free himself, whatever. Elaine, like calls to like is the big thing here. So it's like, Nesta, you could like track it. And Elaine's like, but I could also like track it. And then Nesta's like, Pharaoh, why don't you track it? And Pharaoh's like, well, I would, but I'm pregnant.
And everybody's like, woo.
And everyone's like, oh, that's why you had your shield. And on a reread, you're like, duh, that's why she had her shield.
It is very, oh yeah, that's right. And everybody's like, oh, he's just being overprotective. It did not raise one red flag to anybody. They're like, yeah, but that's weird.
It is weird. What isn't weird here is when Elaine is like, you know what? Stop dealing with how my trauma affects you and start thinking about how my trauma affects me. Because like you, Nesta, are like kind of putting your trauma onto me, and separate us, please.
And she's also very much like, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. If I do this, I'm wanting to help everybody, and you said I can't do it. But then if I don't do it, I'm not a contributing member of this court. Like, pick a lane.
Yeah, pick a lane.
I didn't even mean pick Elaine, pick a lane.
Yeah, like come on. Again, it's a frustration with Nesta where it's like, no, I don't want to. Why can't you? And Farrah's like, actually, I have a fantastic reason. And Nesta's like, oh, damn, I guess you really do have a fantastic reason.
But she still doesn't want Elaine to do it.
Yeah, and she still doesn't want to do it.
And she's terrified. She's like, she's like, let me do research. Let me do everything but the thing that I know is going to work. Again, I recognize because like her own trauma, and she's like, I don't want to look at the college. Like she's looking at it like bigger picture of like the last time I did this, these were the sequence of events. And she's terrified for that.
Yeah, no, I understand that too. But it's also like putting someone else in danger to do it when you already know what to expect is kind of shitty, is what I'm saying. It annoys me. It annoys me.
Well, it's your same frustration where Kale was like, Aelin, you go do this. And Fenris and Rowan were like, why the fuck doesn't Dorian do that same thing?
Yeah, it's like, come on. Like, what? Okay. It did, like, big plot. Emery and her cousin are fighting over this the store. Okay. Cass and Eris are talking about the dread trove. There's an ego boosting blow job where Azzy has to walk in and says, I'm entitled to an opinion. I eat here. Sir.
Az is so funny.
Good evening.
He's like, to let
King
him
behavior.
Like, you know what? Good for Az, because he didn't completely cockblock Cassian. He definitely was like, look, you can totally get that blowjob, but I'm not letting you fuck her where I'm eating.
Yeah, it's like, enough.
Like, there is a difference between under the table action and over the table action.
Yeah.
And it's like, I draw the line here.
It's like, I have to smell all of this. It's disgusting. Like, enough. I love it.
Lanthus says the same thing. He's like, y'all fuck a lot because I can smell you. And Cass's thought was like, oh, thank God he smells sex and not that she's literally the most powerful person right now.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Emery joins Nesta at training. And this is, again, the house reeks of sex.
Well, I like where the house reeks of sex. Rhys is like, what the hell are you two doing? And he's like, shut up.
He's like, enough.
Just let me live my life, Dad.
Yeah, like, gosh. Nesta makes it 3,000 steps. She just like, da-da-da-da-da. They're training more. Meryl and Nesta have that big fight in the library. This is where we learn that Gwyn is a nymph and she has like very pliant bones. That is like so specific. It's like, what? Because it's like she has very pliant bones, and then later it's like the peregrine have very pliant wings.
Yes,
like,
and
we have very rigid bones. It's like, okay,
yeah. And then the cousins of the peregrine over in Dawncourt have something called like the Sarah something, and they're like, oh, but they're cousins, so it's like the similar thing where like kids born to parents who have wings, like the kids who have wings, like they can all birth naturally. It's so fine.
Yep. Speaking of, Farah's baby has wings. Keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody. Nesta decides to scry. She finds the mask in a dream. And then the dream is so scary that Rhys comes and like helps contain her power and goes in her mind, sees her trauma, and says like her power is death. It's very scary. It is the first moment where Rhys realizes that he did not understand what she was going through at all. And it's where he does get more respect for Nesta, I do feel like, in this moment.
Yeah, this is the moment because he's also like, she's been like, he can see in this moment everything that she has been internalizing and understanding the choices that she's made, the actions that she's done to escape and kind of numb herself to it all. Yep.
This is second scrying. We're going to the bog. We're going to the bog. Nesta's cold, right? She like gets ice everywhere. Cassian's hot mouth melts the ice in her mouth.
Oh, when they're like scrying at the river court.
Yeah. It's like,
he's like, that's like the first time that everybody was like, see, we knew that they were like hot for each other, but nobody's acted on it really. And then, we're doing this now. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Guess we did that.
Yeah. All right. Of course, they go to the bog. The highlight in the bog is Nesta murdering that Kelpie, walking out with the head, with the mask coming to her underwater. Excellent.
ACOFAE has that really hot art that she does of Nesta holding the head with the mask and her leathers. It's so good.
It's really good. She kills the Kelpie. She rises from the water. Like, she calls the Legion of the Dead. It's like a whole dramatic, really, really like theatrical scene. Cass and Az bow. I'd love to see that.
Yes, both of them. I think one of my Roman empires is Nesta's intrusive thoughts of having a threesome with them.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
This is the part that they also go up to the Moonstone Castle. I was wondering what we were calling the castle over the hewn city that they were like, that's closest to, and they just refer to it as Moonstone Castle. So she gets her rest there after, dying and having all the dead legions help fight the Kelpie for her. And I like Amren's always in shock. Like, how did you get the mask off, girl? And she goes, I asked for it. And what?
Yeah, and what? Like, I told it to let go, and it did. Like,
she's like, but nobody survives that. And she's like, did me.
This is where we also get that Rhys speaks ancient Fae. Very important to drop this in here.
So important. So pivotal to the storyline in HOSAP.
So pivotal.
And CC3, everything.
It's just like a little line, too. Yes. It's like, okay, all right.
And then Feyre goes like, how? And he's like, my education was thorough. That's all he says.
Okay, sir. All right, fine.
Educate me, Rhys.
Yep. This is where they finally have sex for the first time. Excellent. We have 6,000 steps. Very good. This is Nesta. Nesta gets a sword for the first time at training. Very fun.
Well, I feel like she got the sword because her and Cass are just doing like
a little too much
sword innuendos and training. She's like, where's my sword? Is this all I'm going to do? And he's like, you ready for sword play? And then Emery and Gwyn are just like giggling, like, yeah, she's ready for sword play, Cassian. And then she actually started getting the sword. And then, which I do respect him saying, you know what, next step, yes, she was playing with the wooden sword, but like wanting to take her to a blacksmith and saying like, understand the craft, understand the weapon itself and all that goes into it. Because this isn't just fun and games. This isn't just training. Like these trainings are for survival and can make or break whether you're going to live or die on a battlefield.
Yeah, and Cassian does take her to the blacksmith, and Nesta hammers out 3 weapons that, spoiler, the blacksmith wants nothing to do with. And
3 made weapons.
Yep, and returns them to Rhys, but we'll get to that later. Right now, Helion arrives on his Pegasus. Mwah, we love it. Rhys tells him about the pregnancy. He tells him, like, the queen has the crown. They talk about this, the soldiers, Eris's soldiers that were found in the bog are not enchanted. There's something else going on. That was the crown. Then they talk about like the prison island is the homeland of the Pegasus. We're just throwing all of this lore out here.
Jelly Jubilee for real.
Jelly Jubilee for real. There's 7 pairs out there. All right. Let's see. Helion creates the wards for the masks. Rhys sends Nesta and Cassian to Eris to like tell him what's going on. This is where Azriel gets like kind of an attitude about everything, and where Azriel starts like really chomping at the bit. I want to talk about Azriel's character at the end of this book, but he's kind of like a little busybody. I don't know. We don't know what he's doing in this book, but what he is doing is either supporting Rhys, making fun of Cassian, or being annoyed that he isn't able to torture people. More or less.
Well, I feel like he's always going up against Rhys. Rhys is like, don't do that. And he's like, but I want to do it. But then he's like, then, Feyre will step in and he'll be like, Rhys, do I have to? And he goes, yes, you're high lady. Yes. Like, just it's not like you can go to mom and dad for a different answer. He's like, we're on the same page with all this shit.
Like, enough. Just like, all right, again, big plot points. Nesta's planning for the future with the Valkyrie unit. They're going to start like training like Valkyries because more priestesses have joined and Gwyn is there. This is the put your hands on the headboard situation in their frenzy.
Okay, I did want to ask about that in your thoughts, because is it considered we know they're mates, but they haven't connected their mating bond yet at this scene. And I couldn't remember from our initial episode. Is this they're just really hot for each other, so they want sex all the time? Or is this part of their frenzy?
I think this is part of their frenzy. I really do, because Cassian knows that they're mates, like suspected that they're mates from like the first moment he saw her. So, and like she kind of has an idea what's going on.
And they keep talking about like, how come I can't stop? Like, I'm ready to go right away. And they're like, yep, I get it. Me too. Yep. So it made me think, because I was highlighting, like this one, I color coded my highlights for this read, because I didn't do tags. I did it in ebook and the audio. But I was like, okay, the red is going to be like everything that alludes to the mating bond. So that's why I was like, is it just they're having a lot of sex, or is this like part of the frenzy? I was curious about that.
Yeah, I think it's part of the frenzy, but we'll see. Okay, the blacksmith comes back and drops everything and drops lore. Oh my God. Okay, so we have a sword, a great sword, and a dagger, right? Right?
There's three things. There's three swords. Yeah. There's like a dagger,
sword,
like a regular sword, and then the great sword.
Right.
And the great sword is ataraxia.
Right. Yes. And they are imbued objects, right? Made objects. And this is where Amren is just like, lore. There was a high king, right? Like he lost his sword.
That sword was Gwydion. Gwydion hasn't been seen for over like a millennia, she says. It was lost when the last time the people saw the last dread trove. We know Gwydion from the end of Hosab is back, because they're calling it this, Bryce and Rune call it the Star Sword. We know it as Gwydion in this book, but it is part of this lore. And there's another sword, Narvin. But these swords have the capability to kill the things that are unkillable.
Yes, to kill things that are unkillable. Yes, and so Amren is essentially saying to Rhys, like, "Yo, this is crazy shit. That all of this is happening. It's all happening now. That you all have this now. Like, you have these three blades. Like, you could be High King with all of this stuff. Like, there is a reason that the Cauldron brought this all together. It wanted all of this to happen. So, like, you need to do this.
And none of this is a coincidence. She's like, if Nesta made it, why didn't he bring it to Nesta? Why didn't he bring it to Cassian? Why is he bringing it to you? And Rhys is not about that life anymore. He's tired. He's exhausted. He wants to live his life with his mate and his kid and his family. Like, that's it. And like his people, the people that he likes, really just Valeris. He doesn't care about anybody else. But but his other thing is like the politics of it all that we know from Rhys. He goes, look, I'm trying to make friends again. Like, I just got cool with Tarquin again. If I do this, they're going to think that none of my relationships are genuine.
And Amren says, if you don't take this, Rhys, it'll be offered to another. Like, this opportunity will only last so long. And if you don't take it, the Cauldron will move it to somebody else.
And the Cauldron does not care who it moves it to. And we know this just historically with the Cauldron. It really could go to anybody. This is where I hear people think the theories are going to go to Cass and Nesta, because Nesta's with all the queen thing. But I don't want to speculate. I just kind of want to see how it irons out.
I agree. We can go again, big plot points. Cass is a bad courtier and badly tells Nesta that, she's allowed to know about the trove because they all voted on it. Cool. And,
what do you mean, y'all? Voted on me.
What do you mean you're talking about me? Like,
which I'm still split. I don't think I was split before. I feel like I was split in this reread to be like, I understand where Amren is coming from. But I also think that he should have told her sooner. And this just goes back to the communication of it all, because he was like, I'll tell her. Of course he doesn't tell her. I think she has a right to know. Everybody thought, like, not everybody, but like Rhys and Amren said, don't tell Nesta. And I understand where they were coming from. I just feel like she should have had a say in it.
I would agree with you if her immediate reaction wasn't to storm down the stairs in a race. It's like,
well, and that's what Amren
she
says.
Just proved it. Like,
yeah, and that's what you're right, because that's what Amren says. She was like, and you acting like this is the exact reason why you haven't grown yet. Yeah. What does she say? She goes, you can fuck Cassian all you want. You can do all the training you want. But if you haven't done the internal work, then like the work is just external.
Yeah. So
I had to like talk myself through that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Nesta just like, she gets so mad, that Cassian tells her, they were talking about you. This is after we learn that Nesta is a very good dancer. Okay. She storms down the stairs. She storms into Amren's apartment. She shatters the door. You chose Feyre over me. And Amren's like, yo, I told you to make something of yourself and you took that into I chose your sister. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I just find it funny that this whole time Varian thought he was going to hold up against Nesta, like, get back behind me, Amren. And Aaron's like, no, you need to go. And then he's just like running. I just imagine him running around Valeris with a pillow in front of him trying to
He's like, oh my God.
It's so bad. I think that part just like, it makes me laugh.
Well, because then Feyre shows up and then this is where Nesta's like, your baby's going to kill you. And this is also where Nesta's like, oh my God. Oh, this is her moment of like realization, which finally, thank God.
Yeah. And I'm glad that we get to that point with Nesta, because sometimes she is having those internal conversations, like the second or third day at Windhaven, and and Cassian's like, please just train with me. This is making me look awful. And she goes, I can't. I feel so bad. But internally, she's having these conversations of like, I'm a shitty person. I'm not acting. Like, my body is frozen. I physically can't move. But I'm glad that she got here with Feyre. That realization of she should know, but there's a different way to go about it, because she told Feyre to hurt her, not to educate her.
Yeah. Yeah, and it didn't come from a place of love. It came from a place of like vindictive, like hate, which is just like not good. But essentially, all of this is found out. Obviously Feyre's very hurt, and Rhys is like, you know what? I'm going to kill her. Get her out of the city. I'm going to kill her right now. Respect.
Oh, I love him so much. This again isn't out of character. So much respect. And maybe in that moment he would have killed her, but it's the same energy that she gives Cassian later in this book. Cassian, I'm going to call in my bargain. I need you to do this so I don't do something or say something that's going to impact us both. That's kind of really similar to Rhys right here.
Yeah. It's like,
get her out of this city, I'm going to do something that we're all going to be really upset about.
And what happens is Cassian takes her out to the mountains. They're going out to the lake. And they go hiking. She doesn't drink water for some reason, passes out, and Cassian has to like deal with it. Nesta weeps, and this is where she has her like cathartic cry. Finally, she lets it all out.
She has not cried in months. I feel for her.
She talks about being a failure, about being broken. No one deserves me. I don't deserve happiness. I should have all of this. I should have saved us.
This is the spiral, how everything that she's internalized has been interconnected.
And it's out, and it's like out in the universe, and all of us finally can move on to part 3, Valkyrie. Thank God. This is Gwyn. This is the ribbon. This is Gwyn. This is the part.
You're the new ribbon ass.
Yep. This is the part of it. And they're, training with real swords. Nobody can cut it. My note is messy sex against the desk. All right. This is also where Nesta starts to realize she can have like hobbies and enjoy things again. So she goes and she starts to go to Gwyn's services, and it is there that she accidentally scries, and she sees the prison, the mountain, the gates, the darkness, the doors, the mist, the hatred, the cavern, the black, the rock, the spells, the wards. and the harp. We have our object.
We have object number 2.
We have object number 2. So the service was a scrying, and the harp kind of like talks to Nesta. You know, we can open doors, free us of borders, play us. That's scary. I don't want anything talking to me like that.
If someone's like, play with me, I'm going to do the exact opposite. Not even acknowledge you now.
Yeah, absolutely not. But of course, you know, we got to move on with the plot in this book. They go to the prison to get to get it, you know. Okay, so they get it. Lots of lore here.
So much good lore.
Yeah, so much lore. We stumble upon Lanthis's door, right? You know, prisoners are all here. Was this an 8th court? Constellations, the 8-pointed star, the vision that Nesta has about like all of those fae that are like trapped and screaming and like clawing at the stone with the door being sealed. Again, the White Palace, 5 of the 6 on their thrones. Briellen sees Nesta. They start talking. I know you. I know your friends. Like, go, play, sister, play. First string, let us go. All of those fae are trapped in the stone. This is wild stuff.
This lore right here, it's chapters 53 and 54, are, in my mind, direct correlations with Hosab immediately.
Yeah.
All of it. Between the time travel, between the 26th string, we have like that's like having the 26 universes essentially confirmed. So who knows what, you know, this new series with her is coming from and if it's tied in. You have, what else do you have? I'm looking at what I highlighted.
Which death god are you?
Oh,
because
yeah.
she's got Atraxia with her.
And she's like, you know who I am. And he goes, we've heard your whispers all the way down here. So Nesta's name is being mentioned amongst the people who should be scared of her. And this is where Ataraxia, she goes, one slice took him from his mist form to this physical form. And then she did all her 8-point star moves and finishes him because he was made and so was she. So she unmade him because she does the same thing with Briellen at the end. Spoiler.
Yep. And then Lanthis like gives her this vision of a dark queen, right? We have got to mention the dark queen vision. You know, bone is the 4th object. It's in, you know, shadow, but it looked like bone. Okay. They transport them to the river house. This is where Rhys gives us more lore. The world was created by monsters, you know, they drank magic, the Fae overthrew them, there were territories, you know, 1,000 years later, all of this stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I was like looking at my notes. The Fae were not the first masters of this world. According to our oldest legends, most now forgotten, we were created by beings who were near gods and monsters, the Daglin. They ruled for millennia and enslaved us and the humans. They were petty and cruel and drank the magic of the land like wine. That's the fucking Asteri!
Right there. You know, and then what do we have? We have Gwydion, mentions of the sword. We have the Finn, betrayed by the queen and the general. Chaos, 7 courts, high kings.
Yeah, Finn was the last high king, and because he was betrayed by his friend and his queen, that's why there is no more high king, and the 7 courts are the 7 courts with the lore of the 8th court.
Yep. Let's see. Rhys tells Nesta to seduce Eris as like a play game. Haha, gonna... Very fun.
I do really appreciate Elaine's backstory where she's like, because I feel this is something you and I would both do of, somebody's fucking around with my sister, my best friend. Bet. And Nesta finds this out, does her her song and dance to lure this Duke away from the girl who bullied Elaine. And then Nesta goes, no, I'm good. I knew I was too young, and everybody's just so impressed. She did this at 14. And Elaine says, you've never seen her dance. And I just really appreciate that she did that for Elaine just to piss the girl off who bullied her. And I'm all about that.
We love it. We love it. We love it. It is so petty. We love a queen of
I
petty.
love a petty queen.
Nesta takes Cassian home to her old house. They work through all their trauma. I mean, there's nothing really new there. We have Solstice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because, or no, we have the Court of Nightmares before Solstice.
Oh, the ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, early into the ball. Honestly, Cassian interrupting the dance annoys the hell out of me. Sir, wait. Your woman is working.
You knew the game plan the whole time.
Yeah, like, although I would like to see this in, again, some animated version, because I'm not here for a live-action ACOTAR. I'm on record for that, but animated version. I want to see these 12 turns. Yeah. I would love to see this. I bet it's lovely. I've seen the fan art of Nesta in this moment. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Like, I love it.
Everything about this, you can picture it. You want to picture it animated. I'm curious about the song choice that would be used, because I feel that, like, fandom-wise, we all pick a certain point in the song for this build-up, for this moment. But to see it executed, I think it would be really fun. I'm in the minority that if it's not going to be made the way it should be made with the budget that it needs to be made with, I don't want it at all. I know I'm in the minority. If it can't be made perfectly, then I don't want it.
Agree. Again, skipping big plot points here. Eris proposes marriage. She's a good dancer. We know this.
She's so coy with him too. He's like, you've been hiding from me. She's like, what? Me? I just saw you last week. I think she's on it.
There's the party at the house where we get presents. There's nothing new here. I don't think we have to rehash this. This is Cassian finally gives his present to Nesta. Nesta apologizes. It's the symphonium. This whole fight, I mean, we've covered it in our other episode. My note here, I think, is my note says maximum spillage. Cassian was just very busy here.
He does not stop. He has quite an endless supply, and Nesta's here for it.
Yeah, Nesta's here for it. This is their mating bond. It's very sticky. I don't think we have to get into it. He leaves her, though, immediately to go to the snowball fight, which is very funny. This is where Nesta has her sleepover. It's cute. You know, it's cute. Coming out of this, you know, I am the rock against which the surf crashes. Nothing can break us. Very good. Gwyn cuts the ribbon. Also, you know, very good stuff. This is the obstacle course and the Valkyrie training. Okay. 2 months later, they qualify for the blood rite. Excellent. Starfall party. Nesta's happy at the Starfall party. Very much mirrors Feyre's Starfall party.
And she did all the steps. And this is the part where if I have to go to Starball, I just walk down 10,000 steps. Come fly me back up there.
Yeah, for real.
I'm not going back up 10,000 steps. And Cassian knew. He was just like waiting for her. Like, I'm so proud of you. Which, yes, we get. I know I'm normally like, I could do it on my own. But I'm just imagining climbing 10,000 steps. And now you want me to go to a party? I'm tired. I am tired.
Yeah, I am done.
Then, and she kneels to Amryn for apology.
Yep. And Amryn says, like, you made the house a friend. So, you know, Nesta's really making amends here. You know, later on in the spring, we have Aelin falling through the sky, red star. This is 2 months till Feyre gives birth. You know, there's nothing yet for the wings. This is again, this is where Eris just drops the lore that, like, Ramiel has a bunch of shit underneath it probably, but nobody's ever checked. Isn't it really funny that the prison has something under it and the mountain in the middle has something under it?
There's all the hidden caverns and trails that haven't all been explored.
Yeah, like, come on. This is also where Cassian is with Nesta in Valaris walking around. This is where he uses the word shackled. They have the big fight. This is where she says, this is my favor. Cassian really wants her to say, like, I am your mate. Why are you denying this? Like, why are you hurting yourself? Like, you know, again, nothing really new here that we really need to talk about. The girls are abducted to the blood rite, essentially, after this. Cassian honors the agreement, and, Nesta goes to Emery's house, and it is from there that they're abducted to the blood rite. Nothing to rehash. Honestly, the blood rite is nothing to rehash for me, because it is very much girl power, power to the bracelets, friendship can do everything. And that annoyed me the first time, and it annoys me the second time. So there's really nothing to rehash here, except that the lore of the stone on top of Ramiel, when you touch it, it takes you to like where you need to go, right? So the whole thing about the blood rite is it honors the hero of like the whole world, essentially, and that this lore is lost. That they don't remember this lore of like why they do this, but like they go in the archway that they guard and all of this stuff because the overlords wanted it and the hero saved them and we do the right to honor them. Nobody like really knows the details on that, but that has got to be like the last stand of like the Fae guarding the gate under, like it has to be.
Oh, like that archway is a word gate or something.
Yeah. So like if you touch the stone, it takes you like down maybe to like where the gate is. So like if you have to guard the gate, so that's why he was there, like.
Oh, I like this.
And then Amryn was saying earlier that like she doesn't really remember the Dread Trove, and they ran after the book because the Dread Trove has like an enchantment on it. So like unless you like know about it, you don't really remember it. It's like a memory thing. So like that could be on this. So like, and that's why the Illyrians are camped out in the mountains, because they were there to guard it, and that's why they live there to guard this thing. That's why the mountain is sacred. Like it could all be that.
Oh, I like that.
Could all be that. These are my thoughts from my reread. Because I was not focusing on the power to the friendship bracelets. I was focusing on like, well, what is this? What is this? Because they're like, only this many people can do it. This we lost.
Yeah, only 12 people have made it all the way to the top of Ramiel.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. While the blood rite is happening, of course, Eris was captured, and Cassian and Azriel have to go deal with that whole subplot. Explain to me the Eris, this Eris plot.
I'm still confused about the Eris part of it. Except for this part, I just know that Briallen used Eris as, like, to lure Cassian and or Nesta to basically get Nesta closer to her. That was kind of my takeaway of it, because then she controlled Eris. Eris took over, influenced, however you want to say, Cassian. Cassian was there, and Briallen knew if she had Nesta's mate, that Nesta would come running. But that didn't happen because it all played out a different way. But at the end, she still got Nesta because she wanted Nesta's capabilities to be young. Like this high queen, this high human queen who's been made into an immortal crone is pissed that Nesta got all the Cauldron's goods, but she didn't, and now she wants vengeance.
Yeah. So the whole plot. So Eris was captured by Briallen, lured out in that wagon. Cassian and Azriel follow. They go to the lake where fucking Koschei lives. Koschei pops up, starts giving an evil villain monologue.
I always forget about Koschei, and I know I shouldn't.
Yeah, and then Briallen is like, "Oh, BT Dubs, I'm here too," and then takes Cassian, uses Koschei. That's why they went there, to winnow them to Ramiel, and then she's like, "Oh, I've got your mate," and Nesta's like, "Fuck off," and murders her.
Yeah. She got her wish. She was young before she died. She's like, oh my gosh, she has raven black hair, and now she's Ash.
Yeah.
But that's that. And she's like, oh, don't fuck with me. My mate taught me well. And I feel like that chapter was like really quick.
Yeah, it is really quick because Nesta also like emits the mating bond here. The cottage crumbles. Her old house crumbles in the human world. She unmakes her. Nothing is left of her. It's like this whole.
And at the same time, Mor and Az winnow in. They were like, yeah. Great, you did this. We gotta go. Feyre's like in giving birth.
Yeah, Feyre's giving birth. She's dying. They try to C-section it. It's not working. The blood the bargain. You die, I die, we die. Right? Like,
oh yeah. But this is the first time anybody's hearing about it. Well, not this particular part, but prior to everybody going to Brie Allen and going off, and why Rhys can't. This is where everybody finds out about the bargain that they made at the end of ACOWAR.
Yep. The baby's silent. Rhys is lunging towards Feyre. She's about to die. Nesta can't stand it, right?
Also good for Cassian, because he's like, if they're going to die, why are we holding them back? He deserves to be with Feyre. Like, I really love Cassian.
Yep. Let's see. So Nesta calls all of the objects, the harp, the crown, and the mask to her. She plucks the 26th string, which is time.
I thought that this part is like, because she is made, she could have used any one of those individually, technically, right? But was it just such this desperate cry that she's like, I'm using all of them, I don't care.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I put it in.
And that's why Amron was like, this has never happened before. What is going on?
And this is where Nesta starts talking to the cauldron. Like, I wanted to feel nothing. Now I want to feel everything. I want to experience everything with them. You can have all of my power back if you show me how to save them. This is where Nesta makes her bargain with the cauldron. All of her power goes. And then she apologizes to Feyre, and she goes, Feyre, I love you. I give it all back. And then she says like, I made a bargain with the cauldron itself, and then there's a dry wind in the room. It's like, woo, woo. And then it like sucks out everything, and everyone's like, And then the baby starts crying.
So Nesta asks the cauldron, like, tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix it. You can take the power back. But we don't know what she told her to do. Like, the cauldron didn't say what to do. All we know is that next thing you know, Nesta's powers are being taken. What did she do? Was it just the sacrifice? That's what she had to do?
Yeah, I think it was like, oh, take this from me. I accept it. Rah. I don't know. I hate this whole subplot. I hate this whole storyline. I hate all of it.
Like, that was also like, it's like when people say, try to like offer you something. You're like, oh, well, I wasn't going to ask for that. But if that's what you're offering, sure. If she didn't offer that, she's like, I'll give you half my power.
Well, and she says later, like, someone stopped me from giving away all of my power. I have a little bit left, and that's supposed to be like the true mother. It's like, I'm sorry, Mom. Why did I have to give it away at all?
Yeah, that was like the mother gave her permission to keep some of her powers. So some of her powers are doing shit.
Here's another thing that really bothers me. Of course, we're happy that Nyx is born. Everybody's happy and healthy. Elaine doesn't have a womb that can save her, but Feyre and Nesta do. Okay.
But Gwyn's bones are very pliant, Laura.
Yeah, very pliant, very pliant, very pliant. Good to know. Something that really bothers me is the line that, like, you could rule the world and all, but I don't want to rule. All I want is you. I love you. No, it's not enough. It's not enough. You can love me in a crown on a throne too.
Yeah. And he would have been like, that's right. I'm a consort. And what?
Yeah.
He would love it.
Yeah, it bothers me that not only did Nesta have to get rid of all of her powers, but like her being called a queen over and over and over again in this book amounted to absolutely nothing in this book. And
I like how you're like specifying in this book.
And okay, and we're at the end of this. Okay, they go off into the sunset after they bond over going to their dad's grave, and Cassian and Eris are going to work together. Okay, that's the end of the book. So Nesta has her powers like taken away, right? They're all taken away. She's not a queen in this book. Okay, fine. This is all fine. She also does not have enough power to make any more weapons.
No.
okay.
She doesn't have anything. What power does she go? Maybe she could scry a little extra right now?
Yeah. So the blacksmith like theory that people were like, oh, she's going to like make the weapons and rid the forge for like the armies of hell. No, she doesn't have any power left, or she doesn't have enough. So that awesome subplot that she had this very unique power that could make objects that hasn't been seen before. Again,
queen reference. Yeah.
Gone. Taken from her. She did it once, scared the men, and now it's taken from her. And I hate that. I hate that so much, because unless that storyline is corrected in another book, but in this book that I have, the paper that I have in front of me, I do not like it. And just my last points, I'm going to make my last points. And it is this. I listened to this through audio. Of course, I have a hard copy. We have the hard copies. But I listened to this through audio. Stina killed it, as she does. There are no bonus chapters on the audio. There is nothing. There are no bonus chapters on the audio. If those bonus chapters exist in an audio format, please point me to them just for research purposes. I want to know where they are. I don't know where they are just right now. Okay.
You have the copies at home.
Yeah. The point that I want to make is, if you are not heavily involved in the fandom, if you are a casual reader, if you are just listening to the audio, you do not know that there are bonus chapters out there. And no, they don't necessarily have like a huge impact on the story, but it is extra knowledge that does like kind of prepare you for how things are going to go. And I do think that there is an argument out there for an accessibility about these special chapters, about them not being translated into audio, about them not being like available for everybody, about the capitalism and the collection of it all. I mean, obviously we're not going to get into it. I'm just putting these things out there and say there's a conversation to be had about these things.
I mean, you do make a good point. I know from like, it is very capitalist. I do know that like it's supposed to be that each, I don't know, the publisher has different contracts in place with whoever's distributing certain chapters or bonus exclusives, however that goes. And if you want to argue that, it's a money grab, then why aren't they making, and for an extra $1, you can purchase the bonus chapter audio, right? And then I've seen authors say, well, sometimes the bonus chapter isn't necessary to the story. It's just like a fun little addition that like didn't make sense to keep in, but we still had it, or this, that, the other thing. And you could argue that with the Face and chapter with this book, because it's them finding out that she was pregnant. She was just painting in an art shop, doing her thing, whatever. So maybe that wouldn't add to the story, but Azriel's bonus chapter absolutely feels like it's going to contribute to what happens in CC3 and ACOTAR 6.
It does. And you wouldn't know about it. Like, there are other chapters. Maybe you saw one and didn't know that there were multiple copies that were different. It's just a conversation to be had, and something that is, I think, going to be more relevant as things continue.
Yeah. Well, you're already seeing that with Hosab. I mean, I don't think that there were any extra chapters in Earth and Blood with the copies that I have, nor have I seen anything online. But Hosab, there was like 5 different bonus chapters, and everybody is looking to those as reference points to seeing the crossover and the Easter eggs and how it can contribute to the bigger story, because they do.
Yeah. So I don't know what there is to be done about it. I'm just saying that the special edition conversation and money collection portion of the book community is something that scares the piss out of me, but is, I think, something that will be addressed in a few years' time, because it's getting really wild.
It's getting excessive. Yeah.
So those are all my points. I think to wrap up my talking, Jess, so that you can talk.
I was going to ask you a question, so keep talking.
The lessons that I learned on this reread are I really self-reflected on why this book really rubbed me wrong the first time. And I just want to say again that even though I don't love Nesta as a character, I like and respect her and do acknowledge that she has a fantastic story arc. And even though, again, I'm not a Cassian girly, I love him. And I want to be hugged by Cassian.
See, but that's like how Feyre is with Cassian. Like, she loves Cassian. That is her best. Like, she became best friends with him before getting closer with anybody in the court. So that makes a lot of sense. I was going to ask, do you feel like, and you kind of answered that with your respect towards Nesta in this book, that it took the reread for you to appreciate it the way it is, and because of the additional knowledge of the direction these worlds are going?
Yeah, I needed to separate myself. I think it's 3-part. I needed to separate myself from the expectation of the book, like the first time, separate myself from Nesta's journey because I didn't relate to it, and then include CC2 into the story. And those things together made for a very pleasant and insightful rereading experience. I really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad that you had a better reading experience this time around, because I feel like emotions were really high for everybody with ACOSF. I mean, the conversation, I mean, not just when the book came out. I mean, since the cover was released, I think we talked about it in like one of our first 2 or 3 episodes where we were like, how is it such a visceral reaction about people like, I don't like the cover? I mean, if you're new to this series, spoiler, there was a lot of negative conversation about the cover. Now it's like people's favorite book of the series. People love this cover. They have it in every single edition. So it's really, sometimes you gotta just have to let things settle a little bit. So.
Settle a bit and take a step back, I think, is really good for reflecting. And when everyone's emotions obviously are going to be very high after the next CC book.
I'm stressed even with what we know. I'm stressed.
But I think it just goes to show on, you know, the consistency of ACOFAE is like when we do these revisits, we can glean so much from them. Even though, you know, maybe our initial reactions, the emotions are high, things are here, but we can take the time and take a step back and have a really kind of lovely, insightful look on this character's growth.
No, I love it. But with that being said, thanks for joining us. Feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Thanks so much. We'll talk to y'all soon. Please feel free to reach out to us. Bye.
Bye.